Hello, everyone. I'm John O'Hurley, and I will be serving today as your moderator for this most impressive and important service. This will be the White Ribbon Campaign's reflection on National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This is our nation's dirty little secret that is too long gone without enough light. We are attempting to shed light on that today with the white ribbon. As you can see that I'm wearing it below my chin here. And this symbolizes a personal pledge to never commit, to never condone, or to never remain silent about violence against others. This has become not only a national but an international movement by people that have souls and integrity, that believe that we can get something done the more people we get involved. So we would invite you to join the millions who stand against domestic violence and sexual assault by taking the White Ribbon Pledge. I'll be mentioning the website throughout this program, which will go on for the next hour, and that website is whiteribbonusa.org. All the information you need is there for the pledge and for the white ribbon. We have an esteemed group today. We have 6 speakers today. I'm going to begin with a dear friend of mine, a very well-known actor who would like to present us with an opening video. My dear friend, Eric Roberts.
My name is Eric Roberts. During National Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I'm supporting White Ribbon VA campaign against domestic violence and joining the virtual panel organized by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, White Ribbon USA, and National Association of Social Workers. This awareness event has a significant importance, especially during COVID-19 when domestic violence became a shadow pandemic. As a man, I strongly feel that male engagement in the movement against domestic violence towards women plays a very important part. We as men need to eliminate such shameful phenomenon in our society and show a better example to the new generation of boys and men. You can join millions who stand against domestic violence and sexual assault by taking the White Ribbon Pledge on the White Ribbon USA website, whiteribbonusa.org, just the way I did. It goes like this. I pledge to never commit, excuse, or stay silent about sexual harassment, sexual assault, or domestic violence against others. Simple as that.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. As I mentioned, we have a panel of esteemed speakers. The way it will work is this, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to thank you all certainly for joining in. I am going to introduce each one of the speakers, and then we will hold for a period of questions and answers after that. And each one will address any questions that you have in their specific field of expertise. I'd like to begin with a man named Angelo McLean. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Association of Social Workers and the President of the National Association of Social Workers Foundation.
Thank you, John. I want to thank the VA and organizers for including me in this event. You know, I took the White Ribbon Pledge 13 years ago and pledged that, you know, from this day forward, I'd be part of the solution. And I didn't know when I took that pledge what that was going to mean. I've worn the white ribbon in this role as a Chief Executive Officer of NASW. I've traveled to 45 states in this role, and I've worn the white ribbon in 45 states. And then I've been on 5 continents. And I've had people ask me, you know, what is the white ribbon? I have spoke about the white ribbon in events. I was at a event for nurturing fathers who were graduating from a nurturing fathers program in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and I had mentioned the white ribbon. I wasn't even planning on talking about it that day, but I had mentioned it. And then one of the men from the audience said, "Well, we want to take the pledge." And he said, we want to take it now. So 100 men got up from the audience, and they came up and they took the pledge. And it really meant a lot to them to be able to take the pledge. I was wearing the white ribbon at a conference probably about 5 years ago, and someone stopped me in the hallway and said, what is that? And I told him what it was, and he said, I'd like to take the pledge. He took the pledge, and I said, here, you can have my white ribbon, and I gave it to him. Fast forward 3 years later, I bumped into him at another conference, and he said, I've been wearing this white ribbon. I've been talking to people about the pledge and talking to people about committing to ending intimate partner violence. And he says, I want to give you this ribbon back. I said, no, I gave it to you. I want you to keep it. He says, no, it'd be my honor if you would take this back from me. Because I've made a commitment, and in giving your leadership, you've propelled me to do that. And I wore the white ribbon to an event, a VA event, about 3 years ago, and someone asked me there, what is that? And I talked to him about it. And then fast forward 2 years later, I was at another VA event and was wearing the white ribbon, and they said to me, it would be great if we could do a white ribbon campaign at the VA. It says, one of the big problems we're having with, I see there's a shout out from Amarillo VA. I got to say, hey, I recognize that. Thumbs up, Amarillo. But they said, could we do a VA event? And I said, sure. I said, we would, I don't know if I can help or not, but I would like to help if I can, because I did make a commitment that I'd work to be part of the solution. And you never know. I had a discussion once with a man I met at a conference, and he shared with me that his daughter had been murdered on a college campus in Connecticut, and he was sharing with me that whole experience. And he gave me a book he had written, and I couldn't tell you the title of that book. This is probably 12 years ago now, maybe 14 years ago, but that compelled me to sit down with my daughter and have a discussion with my daughter about domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and how to handle yourself, what to do, the kind of help that's available, the warning signs, and so forth and so on. And little did I know, about 4 years later, my daughter was in a relationship that was going sideways. And she took all the appropriate steps to protect herself and get out of that situation. I was just so thankful that man had stopped me that one day and had a discussion with me. And that discussion he had with me prompted me to have a discussion with my daughter. And that discussion I had with her prompted her to take the actions. And we never know, a discussion we might have with someone in an elevator or at a fast food joint, or just in the offices, in the hallway, or at a VA medical center, that could really impact and save lives and save trauma. And that's what we're talking about is as a community standing up and saying, we have to reduce, curb, and eventually eradicate violence from intimate relationships. People should feel safe in their homes, and they should feel safe in their intimate relationships. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, John.
Thank you very much, Angelo. Very touching story about your personal relationship with this as well. I'll ask you about that later. I'd like to move on to our next speaker, well known to many of you. She's the heart and the thrust behind all of this, Veronica Mudra, the CEO and founder of White Ribbon USA. Women's rights activist. She's also a TED-supported speaker, chairman of the White Ribbon in Ukraine. She's also a social entrepreneur. In 2014, she co-founded White Ribbon Ukraine. In 2018, she co-founded White Ribbon USA in California. And now she works on several nationwide campaigns against domestic violence and women empowerment. Welcome.
Thank you very much, John, for this great introduction. As the head of White Ribbon in the U.S., I want to say great thank you to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and to the National Association of Social Workers for making it happen and for your support. On a personal level, I want to thank you, John, and I want to thank to Eric Roberts for supporting our cause and for using your fame and legacy for good and for helping us to engage more people, more men and women in this movement and White Ribbon campaign against domestic violence. So I want to say a few words about White Ribbon Campaign, and it's a global movement of men and boys working to end male violence against women and girls. It was formed by a group of pro-feminist men in Canada in 1991, and the campaign was intended to raise awareness about the prevalence of male violence against women, with the white ribbon symbolizing the idea of men giving up their arms. You might be familiar with other ribbons, awareness ribbons existing in the world, like pink ribbon that stands against breast cancer and red ribbon that stands against HIV and AIDS. So I think now the time has come for white ribbon to be more spread in the US. And it's time for us, for all of us, to stop this shameful phenomenon, as Eric Roberts said, and we can eliminate all forms of gender-based violence against others in our society. So I personally and professionally really admire White Ribbon Campaign for a few reasons. So on a personal level, White Ribbon helped me to overcome certain situation that I experienced in my life, because I am an immigrant from Ukraine. I came to the US in 2013 as a refugee, and I got asylum together with my child under Domestic Violence Protection Program. For the first time, I've heard about this campaign just before I left Ukraine, where I couldn't protect my basic human rights. And I've heard about it from my friends who run White Ribbon in Poland, and they introduced me to the White Ribbon. And since that moment, since 2013, I decided to give back. I decided to give back to the community where I live. I decided to give back to the country that gave me and my child a shelter and asylum. And I decided to give back to the country I came from, to the Ukraine, because the situation there with the Women's Rights Protection Program is in pretty low level, unfortunately, at the moment. So in 2017, already as a White Ribbon representative, I went to the Parliament of Ukraine to advocate for the legislation for criminalization of domestic violence there. In 2018, we were able to open White Ribbon USA as a centralized office, as a centralized representation of White Ribbon in the US. And since that, with minimal donor funding, we were able to do a lot of initiatives supported by the State Democracy Fund, by the US Embassy, and others. So during the COVID-19, we faced a really big issue related to the domestic violence. So that led us to understanding that raising awareness on different platforms, virtual platforms, is very important. That's why we're developing right now White Ribbon application, mobile application that will be available anywhere, anytime for anyone. And in case of one-on-one emergencies, people will be able to find more support online. Also, I want to say that male engagement is very important, and we really appreciate a lot of decision makers and celebrities who support White Ribbon in the US and globally. For example, Selma Hayek runs White Ribbon Initiative in the UK, and she engaged a lot of famous actors like Orlando Bloom, like Cameron Diaz, Penelope Cruz. She also got support from Paul McCartney, Stella McCartney, a lot of people really famous in the world using their fame for good, and I really, really appreciate it. And thank you again, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Thank you again, Angelo, who represents and who is the Chief Executive Officer of National Association of Social Workers, for making White Ribbon VA alive and happening right now. And I want that everyone will watch our a little promo video from last year about White Ribbon VA campaign.
I'm Oliver Trevino. I support White Ribbon VA campaign against domestic violence. White Ribbon VA is a joint awareness campaign of the White Ribbon USA, US Department of Veterans Affairs and other partners that encourage both men and women to commit to help end domestic violence against women and to proudly wear a white ribbon to represent their commitment. White Ribbon USA is affiliated with the world's largest movement of men and boys working to end violence against women and girls. It is also meant to promote gender equality, healthy relationships, and a new vision of masculinity. White Ribbon VA campaign is a national call to action under VA's Stand Up to Stop Harassment Now campaign. The aim is to eliminate sexual harassment, sexual assault, and domestic violence in VA healthcare settings and in the community. It's important that we spread the awareness around the world now. Participate in White Ribbon VA campaign and take a pledge to never commit, excuse, or stay silent about violence against women.
Very good. Thank you. I'll echo once again when as I was beginning that video there. Veronica, thank you again for your perseverance and your commitment to what you have done both in the Ukraine and here in the U.S. Our next speaker is Lelia Jackson. She is the senior strategist from the Department of Veteran Affairs in the VHA Assault and Harassment Prevention Program. Welcome to you, Lelia.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much for hosting this event. I am honored today to participate in this amazing White Ribbon Town Hall event amongst this esteemed panel. Veronica, thank you. And thank you for your tireless leadership in this critical issue. And I want to thank White Ribbon USA for its openness to allow the Department of Veterans Affairs the ability to make VA White Ribbon VA a genderless movement. And of course, I am thrilled to be here with Dr. Angelo McLean, the CEO of the National Association of Social Workers. It was just about a year and a half ago that I first heard Angelo's powerful story about White Ribbon. And it is as powerful today as it was when I first heard it. In fact, it was Angelo's passion and boldness to speak out against sexual harassment, sexual assault, and domestic violence and intimate partner violence that inspired us here at VA to collaborate with White Ribbon USA and the National Association of Social Workers, and to adopt White Ribbon campaign and incorporate it into our programming here. It really just made sense to do it. I mean, our three organizations are united in the same goal of eliminating sexual harassment, sexual assault, and intimate partner violence against others in our communities and in our facilities, and to promote a positive change in the organization. One thing that we know, and all of us here know, is that both men and women experience sexual harassment, sexual assault, and domestic violence. There's a statistic that says 1 in 4 women and about 1 in 10 men experience some type of sexual assault or intimate partner violence in their lifetime. That means that it's highly likely that any one of us or someone that we know has experienced sexual harassment or sexual assault. Here at VA, White Ribbon is genderless. Everyone can participate. Quite frankly, as we would say in the Marine Corps, it's an all hands on deck opportunity for every person individually and collectively to stand up to stop this type of disruptive and unacceptable behavior. It's just as simple as has already been said as making a commitment to never excuse, never commit, or never remain silent about sexual harassment, sexual assault, or intimate partner violence against others. We know that it takes a long time sometimes to make change in a culture. Many of you in the audience who's 40 years or older, you'll remember when the country implemented car seats. I think around 1985, the law changed where children had to be strapped into their car seats. But before that, kids would be in the back seats of their cars and no one thought anything about it. But when the law changed, people were slow to adopt and make change. But eventually, people started really paying attention. And now it's really taboo. If you see a child in a car without a car seat, you're alarmed by it. You're aghast by it. And I think the same thing happens to us when we hear about car accidents, when someone is in a car accident and it's tragic, there's death, and the folks weren't wearing seatbelts. We can't believe it. I believe the same thing is going to happen with sexual harassment, ending sexual harassment. I think if we all take a stance against harassment, sexual assault, and intimate partner violence, it will soon become taboo. I truly believe that bystanders who see someone being sexually harassed or sexually assaulted will say something. They'll report it. They'll do something. And I also believe that the staggering national statistics will go down, and if more Americans will embrace the White Ribbon Pledge. Thousands have now, I'm proud to say, have joined the VA in taking the White Ribbon VA Pledge. Employees, veterans, family members, our VA partners, and friends of VA have joined us in promoting respectful behaviors toward others. For those of you who don't know, VA is the largest healthcare system in the country. More than 9 million veterans are enrolled in VA healthcare. Let me put that in perspective for you. From March 2018 to April 2019, approximately 107 million outpatient appointments were made. Outpatient and inpatient appointments were made. That's staggering. So our big audacious goal here at VA is that every veteran, every person who enters a VA facility will take the White Ribbon VA Pledge and live by it and stand by it in VA facilities and in their own communities. Make no mistake, the White Ribbon VA Pledge is more than words. It's really the actions that follow the pledge that will make the difference. Together, I really believe this, that we can end gender harassment and sexual assault if we work together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lilia. That was very nicely put, and I agree with you that the greatest social changes come through the actions, through repetition. Exactly. When we find out that something is socially unacceptable and enough people are against it, things happen. Things happen indeed. Our next speaker comes to us from the Department of Veteran Affairs. He is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Resolution Management, Diversity, and Inclusion. We welcome Harvey Johnson.
Thank you, John, and thank you, everybody. And, Veronica, thank you for inviting me to this tremendous opportunity. I absolutely love teaming up with Miss Layla Jackson, who you just heard from. There could not be a greater champion for the cause than Layla. And honestly, from meeting my other panel members here, I would say the same thing about everybody. So thank you. I'm going to begin with a dream. What if ultimately there were no distinction between the perception of self and that of others? A world where we are the unity of all that is. Imagine for 1 second if everyone felt welcomed, safe, and included, that there was this peaceful sort of coexistence. I use the term conscious equity as a term for cultural humility and civil treatment of others. How do we begin to supplant deeply ingrained beliefs? How do we eradicate a fear-based mind, one that may have been taught to believe that all people are not created equal? What do you say to someone who may have strong negative beliefs about someone whose gender, race, or other defining categories are different from theirs? For me, it begins with cultural humility, empathy, and love for all. And I begin with the question, what if it were you? Should you expect to be physically and psychologically safe, welcomed, comfortable, and included? The only answer is yes. Everyone should expect that. Everyone deserves it. Now, if I were in the auditorium with you all today, and I love being in auditoriums, I would draw a horizontal line. And on the board, I would write above it the word love, and below it, the line, I would write the word hate. I would then ask the audience for words synonymous with hate. And in past, I've received words like fear, envy, anger, jealousy, ego, pride, insensitive, harassment, assault. And then I always add drifting and neutral. Then I would ask for words synonymous with love. Typically, I might receive happy, joy, civil, kind, trust, empathy, compassion. And again, I would add conscious. You see, every day I wake up, I make a conscious decision to remain above the line. But if I allow myself to drift or become neutral, there are a number of people, social media influences, my own ego, if not checked, that will drag me below the line. I can share stories where I've caught myself slipping below the line through succumbing to my own ego, peer pressure, media hype, or other behaviors that don't positively shape me. I often use the word oneness. And someone asked me once what I meant by that. What do you mean by oneness? And a book by Rasha on oneness, or Skylar Ekemesis, who you can find on YouTube, offer probably the best examples. But I would say it like this. If you study the human body, we know that we're complex structures comprised of an infinite number of cells. Each cell is called to serve a higher purpose. A lung cell, a heart cell, skin cells, so forth. When a cell or group of cells ignores its higher calling and becomes maladaptive and fails to perform in the manner it should, we call that cancer. We too are cells, and I look upon our global population in the same manner. When we're not working towards becoming our higher self in concert with one another, we become maladaptive to society. Individuals become cancerous. Anyone who harasses another is maladaptive and absolutely cancerous. Everyone that can hear my voice or read my message must be committed to zero tolerance for harassing, disruptive, abusive, or violent behavior. This is a global issue, not a VA, not a national, but a global issue. But I know White Ribbon and its allies are up to the challenge. There's an old saying, if there's a Goliath in front of you, that means there's a David inside of you. We need to call on our inner David to tackle this complex issue of bad behavior we face today. And we begin by learning from past mistakes and not being neutral. When I served in the Army, I loved operations and planning. Someone whose job it is to learn from mistakes and propose actions is known as a strategist. You see, strategists recognize relevant similarities between situations and avoid proposing actions that are likely to repeat failure. Well, today, we need to become strategists and eliminate harassment and assault. Now, strategists know you can't fix things overnight. It's a bit like saying, I want to be in shape tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. We need a moral awakening to increase the increase the ability to see one another with love, compassion, empathy, and everything above the line. In closing, in a time where we seem to have extreme polarization, extreme violence, extreme hatred, we must shift and practice extreme forgiveness. Forgiving so radically requires a deep maturity, grace, and mercy. And forgiving will start the healing process in 2021. As a strategist, I see us headed in that direction. It is time for all people of conscience to voice their opposition to legally sanctioned violence, inequality, and disruptive behavior. It's tarnishing America's image at home and abroad. We all want a civil, enlightened, equitable society where each of us has the right to become our higher self. Thank you for listening to me. Back over to you, John.
Yeah, you bet. Harvey, thank you so much. It was a very enlightening presentation. I think as we all are shaking our heads here, I appreciate that very much. Yes, we are in need of a moral awakening, aren't we? All right, moving on to our next speaker, Dr. Leanne Bruce, who is serving as the National Program Manager for the Department of Veteran Affairs Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program since December of 2016, quite a while. Trained as a clinical social worker, Dr. Bruce has been involved in supporting healthy families, preventing and treating many forms of domestic violence for over 25 years. Welcome. Welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, John, and thank you to all of the speakers that came before me. I knew coming up at the end was going to be rough, and it is. But thank you all so much for having me here today. It is such an honor to have this opportunity to participate in this important event with such esteemed colleagues from the VA, NASW, and White Ribbon USA. As a social worker by training, and being able to take part in an NASW initiatives on this scale is truly a treat. As was mentioned in my introduction, I am the National Program Manager for the VA's Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program, or you may hear me refer to it as IPVAP. We love acronyms in the VA. We work from a public health model, and raising awareness about IPV is a vital part of our work. Each year, we conduct national awareness campaigns in observance of Domestic Violence Awareness Month and other things. And it was during one of these campaigns a few years ago that Dr. McLean first introduced me to the White Ribbon Campaign. And if I had been a cartoon, you would have seen a little light bulb go on above my head at that time. We immediately embraced this and began weaving the message of the White Ribbon and the White Ribbon Pledge into our outreach and awareness efforts. The White Ribbon found its way into our symbolism and our resource materials. And for us, embracing the message of the White Ribbon alongside the traditional domestic violence awareness purple ribbon symbolism embodied this message that we've all been talking about unity that we're striving for. It reinforces the message that violence is a human problem, and that we need everyone to take part in the shared mission to eliminate sexual harassment, sexual assault, and domestic and intimate partner violence by promoting this positive culture change we're all talking about. From that point on, the IPVAP National Office staff and field-based coordinators across the country have taken the pledge, and we continue to weave the message of the White Ribbon into all that we do. For those of you who are not aware that we have, the VA has an entire national program dedicated to addressing intimate partner violence and relationship health and safety, I'll take the liberty of giving you a brief overview. First, let me introduce you to the traumatic triad: intimate partner violence, sexual violence, and I'm going to throw in human trafficking. The VA defines intimate partner violence as any physical, sexual, psychological, or emotional violence, including stalking and coercion. We recognize that as occurs in heterosexual and same-sex relationships and does not assume that the partners live together or have intimacy. IPV is considered to be a national public health epidemic. Sexual violence can occur within the context of intimate relationships, as well as non-sexual or non-partner sexual harassment and violence. Victims we recognize include women and men, with additional risk factors for those individuals who identify as non-binary gender, transsexual, or are in same-sex relationships. And with human trafficking, as many as 23,000 victims are trafficked each year. Individuals who are homeless, living in poverty, and are addicted to substances are at higher risk, including veterans. This is highly correlated with both intimate partner and sexual violence, so it's important to discuss in this context. The VA has assembled a team of subject matter experts to explore the prevalence and impact of human trafficking among the veteran population. We know that veterans may be at higher risk for these social problems, as they have all the same problems and risks as the general population, but they also have some unique challenges that can impact their relationships, such as frequent separations from family members and deployments, post-traumatic stress disorder and other mental health diagnoses, difficulty with trust and dealing with guilt and shame, issues such as traumatic brain injury, substance abuse, sleep disturbances, medical and mental health issues, homelessness. These things sometimes place our veterans at higher degrees of relationship problems. Also, in some cases where there are changes in role diffusion, where they're being cared for by a family member or intimate provider, where the roles have changed, placing greater stress on relationships. We know that this isn't a cause of intimate partner violence, but it can certainly lead to relationship issues, conflict, and potentially intimate partner violence. And when all of that is present, we worry very much about veteran homelessness, job security, poverty, justice involvement, increased mental and health and healthcare concerns, And of course, as we all talk about suicide, but when we add the element of intimate partner violence and relationship breakdown to this mix, we're worried about homicide as well. Since January of 2014, the VA has been committed to providing a comprehensive array of programs and services to promote relationship health and safety. We serve veterans, we serve their partners, we serve VA staff who have experienced and or used intimate partner violence. Every VA medical center now is required to provide services that promote healthy, safe relationships through prevention and awareness and early intervention and screening, universal education, safety planning, and a variety of interventions. The program is overseen by a designated IPVAP coordinator located in every VA medical center who provides trauma-informed and recovery-oriented services unique for veterans and their families. We do all this through a strong network of partners, such as the partnership you see here today with NASW, White Ribbon VA, and White Ribbon USA. So I just want to say that there's, a number and a website scrolling at the bottom of your screen. If you're a veteran, an intimate partner of a veteran, a concerned family member, a VA or community partner who works with veterans, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our IPVAP coordinators and our national office understand the unique needs and stresses experienced by veterans and their families, and we can help. That link is scrolling, and we want to just add our voice to the choir. It says, we need to end this. We need to end this sexual harassment, sexual assault, and domestic and intimate partner violence. And we all need to work together to do so. So thank you for having me here today and giving me this opportunity to share our program with you.
Leanne, thank you very much. Very well put. Thank you indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our presentation today, but that doesn't mean that this is the end of our program. We have plenty of time for questions right now. If you have a question, please engage us by typing it in. In the meantime, as those are coming in, I would like to begin by asking Angelo a question, if I might. With, you talked about male engagement. What do you think, what do you see as historical impediments to getting men involved in this, what has always been a traditional woman issue? And it's always been something that has been swept under the cover, but how do we get more men involved?
Yeah, it's, thanks for that question, John. And it's, as you were asking that question, I was thinking back to, I was doing some work with a group of men on men's issues, and was then also doing work with, and mostly women, but people who worked in the domestic violence prevention community. And, I kept imagining, wouldn't it, we should be getting these two groups together. I mean, they're working on the same things. They're coming at it from different angles. And when we first talked to the domestic violence prevention folks, is, we don't know. Sometimes these men, they have these groups of men, they have these ideas that don't really resonate with us. And they ask the men, they said, we don't know. They're going to think we're all abusers. And but we brought the two groups together, and I can't really take credit for it because I think a couple of the men finally said, we just got to do this. And it was the most terrific partnership ever. And they started doing all kinds of different things together. But it is a man's issue. Oftentimes, as men will say, we all have daughters, we all have nieces and mothers and grandmothers and female colleagues, and that we wouldn't want the people we care about and love to be hurt because someone who should have gotten some help or some intervention, or and I'm always excited by White Ribbon when we see the youth and young adults taking the pledge, because then we say, okay, there's hope for the next generation. They're learning a different kind of social norm, and being pushed. But I just think it's engaging. I've over the course of my doing this work, if I engage people and talk to them and give them a path towards getting involved, they'll get involved. So part of it does involve just an invitation and inviting people, in some ways meeting them where they're at, and if there's some resistance, kind of helping them work through that resistance.
Thank you, Angelo, very much. Questions, Greg? Do we have any? All right. right, you see it there below from Tammy Ann. Thank you. Beyond the pledge, what are the plans to increase awareness and training for all of the providers? Veronica, why don't you take that?
Meaning VA providers. So I think the VA representative will better answer that.
Ah, okay.
Well, if you'd like for me to jump in, the Intimate Partner Violence Assistance Program has a three-tier approach to training of providers. We want to make sure we're working on some trainings to put out there for all providers. We do think that everyone in the VA needs to be aware of our program and the risks. And so through our coordinators, which are wonderful boots on ground people, they're doing a lot of work to educate the providers around them. But then we also have other tier of trainings for screenings, assessments, safety planning, for actual providers. We do everything from a trauma-informed approach to make sure that we're not, from our screening to our interventions, that we're not re-traumatizing people who are coming to us, men or women, who are wanting to disclose this very sensitive information. And so we are working on that and have campaigns that run year-round to make sure that we have that, that we're trying to put out that awareness so people know that we exist and we are here to help.
And I want to add to this that White Ribbon traditionally is not a service-based organization, but we're awareness and educational-based organization. Meaning that traditionally we work with law enforcement, we work with the policymakers, we work with governmental organizations to make sure that in their agendas, standing against domestic violence is included. So, so we work with providers like U.S. Department of VA to make sure that awareness against domestic violence or against any forms of gender-based violence against others, it is in place. So that's why basically we are doing this joint White Ribbon VA campaign to raise the level of awareness. This is a long-term sustainable work, and that's why it's very important to have such providers as VA on our side. So I really appreciate that. And as a social worker myself, because my background is a social work as well. So I really appreciate all efforts that Angela McCain is doing as a CEO of the National Association of Social Workers. So Angela, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And, you know, we do a lot of professional development opportunities where people can get their continuing education units, and we have domestic violence, intimate partner violence prevention, learning opportunities. About 18 months ago, we did a 3-day national conference, and the sole content was domestic violence prevention information. So we get that information out there, and then we also have a domestic violence toolkit, and there's a lot of resources there for social workers who would want to get involved in this work.
All right, another question coming in from Natalie Peterson. Thank you, Natalie. Are there plans for expanding the White Ribbon campaign, maybe a walk, a marathon, other major events to increase awareness?
I think I can answer that. So as you know, we have in the US marathons and walks on behalf of Pink Ribbon. A lot of even soccer players and athletes support Pink Ribbon. So because we're
Did we lose you?
Yeah, looks like we lost Veronica.
We did. All right. Do we have another question? We'll come back to that if we can't address it right this minute with Veronica being frozen there. All right. And adding to Natalie's question about expanding into the school systems nationwide. That probably still would be a question for Veronica. While we're trying to get her back on the line, let me. I want to go back to Harvey for just a second. You you brought up the notion, a word that's a very important word and rarely practiced in our vocabulary and in our social mores, and that is forgiveness. Talk to me a little more about that. I'm fascinated by including that into the language and our dialogue in terms of that. Veronica, we'll come right back to you.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with the internet. I'm so sorry.
Harvey,
So
go ahead.
after that, we do have such plans, and hopefully we'll grow and we'll be able to do it.
All right, Harvey, now back to you.
Okay, thank you. John, thank you for that question. You know, I use the word forgiveness deliberately. And there's an old saying that I learned a long time ago from my mother. You know, you defend what you create. And if you go out, the best way, and remember what I said, conscious equity, you know, and oneness and peace. When you realize we're all in this together, you can't attack another. And the only way you can do that is through forgiveness. Forgiveness is such a powerful word in order to get to and achieve holistic peace. And that's what this requires. It requires that deep maturity, that deep understanding, that deep empathy, that deep compassion. And all of that begins to me with forgiveness. So if I look at a serial harasser or a superstar harasser, it's easy to just attack that person and say you're wrong, shame on you, blah, etc. But I think you first have to understand what goes into making a serial harasser. You know, how did that person become a serial harasser? And the earlier question about the schools, you have to start at an early age. What if we learned these in elementary school, this lesson? And you kind of do. You kind of learn not to spit, not to push, not to do those things. But those lessons have to be enforced all throughout our young adult lives into our adult lives. And again, forgiveness is such a powerful word, and it's hard to do when you believe somebody has wronged you, wronged another. But it really does start there.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about the schools. In Massachusetts, on the White Ribbon Day, and we celebrated it the first Thursday in March, and that's continuing. Leela and I that was the last thing we did before the pandemic hit. We went to Boston and participated in that with Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito and Enos Cantor, who was a member of the Celtics, and some young men and women there. But we would have the White Ribbon campaign at the schools, you know, high schools, junior, middle schools. In particular, a lot of the teams would use that as whether it was their hockey team or their track team, use that as an opportunity. So it easily cascades into the community and to the colleges and to the schools, and it's a great event and the kids really get behind it.
I want to add about the White Ribbon Day. So if you see behind me, there is a backdrop. I don't know if you see, it's about White Ribbon Day. So there is actually an International White Ribbon Day, and it's traditionally celebrated during November. In different countries, we have different days because of different calendars and different national holidays. But there is an annual UN initiative that is called 16 Days Against Gender-Based Violence Towards Women and Girls. It starts on November 25, and this is a day of elimination of all forms of gender-based violence towards women and girls, and ends on December 10, the International Human Rights Day. So basically this year we're going to have International White Ribbon Day, and hopefully we can do something together to acknowledge this very important day and to raise more awareness. And as Angelo mentioned, it's very important to engage boys and younger generation of men, and sports is a great tool for this. We have a great experience working with athletes and to promote White Ribbon and awareness about White Ribbon through internationally famous athletes, and hopefully we can do more about it.
All right, here's a question coming in from email. How can human trafficking take place in the military? Who would like to answer that?
I suppose I'll jump in since I mentioned it. As far as in the military, I couldn't answer that since I don't work with DoD, Department of Defense, so that's out of my realm. We're looking at the impact on veterans, though, after they've come out of the military, the prevalence and some of the risk factors for veterans.
Mm-hmm. Lily, I'm going to ask you, from your experience, how common is domestic violence in the veterans communities?
Well, you know what's one thing, and Leanne sort of said this, is that our military, you know, they leave active duty and then they go into their communities and they are just a part of their communities, just like I am. I am a veteran. I served 20 years in the Marine Corps, but I'm a part of my community. And nationwide, there's an issue with domestic violence, intimate partner violence, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. What makes us different in the VA is that we are standing up against it. We are, as an organization, we're saying we're not going to take this. We're standing up against it, and we want to invite our partners to do the same thing. We are not tolerating harassment or sexual assault in our facilities. We just can't. We want people to be treated with respect. And we want people to feel welcomed and safe in our VAs. And we would expect that to happen in our community. So I say that we are a reflection of our communities.
All right. Here's a question. I love that White Ribbon is in VA. Okay. What is being done in the DoD? Now, can anybody answer that? Is at least in a bit? Okay.
I can answer a little bit about that. In fact, several of our VA facilities are partnering with their local DoD bases that are close to them. But when we started down the road of the White Ribbon Campaign in VA, we actually did our research and we found that quite a few military bases and stations have White Ribbon Campaign programs there. So you'll most likely see them in April and October, really highlighting it. But when I was in Boston, as Angelo brought up, there were a lot of military personnel there, National Guard, reservists, participating in that event.
Yeah, and I helped host an event a few years back at Hanscom Air Force Base, where where members took the pledge, and it was really so fascinating for me because, they talked about, honor and duty and courage. So it was just a whole different, like there's a duty, there's an honor to your fellow service member to treat them with respect and dignity. So it put a whole nother lens on it for me, having that experience.
All right. Willing to have uncomfortable conversations to promote a better venue for all. Well, that was more of a comment, and we thank you for that. I want to go back to Veronica for a second. When you started, when you co-founded this organization, you had a vision. Somewhere in your imagination, you saw the picture of success. What does that picture look like to you right now? How do you see this maturing and growing?
I would like to say that now probably is really perfect momentum for White Ribbon USA in the US. Because we all know Pink Ribbon and Red Ribbon are more connected to medical issues. White Ribbon is more connected to legislation, is more connected to law enforcement, is more connected to social and gender policies, is more connected to education. So our work is long-term, is sustainable. So as I see it now, is probably we want to work more with law enforcement establishments because now we see big changes in police on state, on a federal level. And I think that addressing and a better attitude towards both victims and abusers is very important because police officers are those who are the first one taking calls when there is a domestic violence emergency. So I think addressing this issue is very important with the police. Also, engagement of governmental organizations is very important. And basically, we're very happy that more and more people every day take more pledges, more virtual White Ribbon VA pledges on our website. So raising awareness on community levels is highly important for us because White Ribbon is decentralized civic movement. So basically, we work with people, and the more people are engaged, the better White Ribbon USA is known to public. So basically, being known to public and raising awareness on community levels is very important for us for the moment.
All right. Another question from email coming in. How has the pandemic affected efforts to address domestic violence? Who would like to?
I can take that. Basically, we faced a big gap in online tools, online self-help tools during pandemic. So I already mentioned about the White Ribbon app. So we basically have applications for everything, for ordering food, for ordering flowers, for walking our dogs, but we don't have a really powerful application of full cycle of self-help tools for domestic violence victims. For example, finding a shelter, booking a shelter in emergency situations, then filing for restraining orders or at least initiating the process online, then finding the nearest police department, contacting police department or 911 service in cases that when you have a limited access to a phone, but you can actually contact police using the application, the third-party application. Then also recording evidences of abuse is very important. And sometimes when victims reporting the abuses, they have lack of evidences. So having such important application, an online self-help tool probably is very important, and that's what we faced during the pandemic.
Very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if there are any more questions, let me see, take a peek there on our line if there's any more. I see no more questions. I'm going to begin by thanking my esteemed panel today and shedding light, as I said, on a dirty little secret. And I hopefully that this is going to have some great effect, and I hope that people will go to the website there, White Ribbon, and sign on and take the pledge. Get your wear it proudly, as I do. I want to thank you all for being with us. Everybody, thank you, Lilia, Dr. Leanne. Angelo, thank you, my friend. Harvey, I enjoyed that very much about listening to you discuss forgiveness. That's something I'm going to ponder for the rest of the day. And of course, Veronica, thank you for all of your efforts in putting this and keeping this alive and moving the flag forward. Bless you all. Thank you again.
Thank you.